Hello world, welcome to the 157th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It is December 10th, 2021. Next week will be December 17th, 2021, and that'll be number 158. So right now the United States is in the middle of a catastrophic drought situation. People in the country don't even know about it. They have no clue what's happening because they don't do the research. Too busy watching corporate TV, which is the mainstream TVs, the three big stations plus Fox Television. They don't know there's a drought situation. It's catastrophic. It's spreading throughout the whole United States. We're down to 7, 8, 9 states basically that aren't in drought. You have Puerto Rico that's in severe drought. Hawaii was in a devastating drought. Now they got atmospheric rivers of rain coming in, Pineapple Express or whatever it's called. So it's horrible what's happening in the United States, and they don't know. No one has a clue as to what's happening at all. So if you go on USA Drought Monitor, you can check that out yourself on the internet. So I've been listening to many programs on YouTube, and there's a couple that have guest speakers on and everything, and the guest speakers, over 2 or 3 of them, have insisted that protests do not work, and they haven't worked in 50 years. That is an absolute falsity. You had the Arab Spring. This is since 2010. You had the Arab Spring, which totally changed the fabric of Northern Africa. You had Occupy Wall Street, which got people thinking. You have the Hong Kong protests. You've had protests everywhere but here, basically. India, Iraq, Lebanon, Ukraine, South Korea, Sudan, Zimbabwe, the Latin American countries, Colombia, Peru, Nicaragua, Argentina, Venezuela. You had the Asia Minor, you had Pakistan and India, as I said. You had Russia protests, you had protests in Greece, you have XR, Extinction Rebellion, and Fridays for Future in Europe, which protested in Germany, France, Belgium, Netherlands, United Kingdom, you name it, everywhere, as well as Australia. And the USA has had protests, but the only ones that really been big have been New York City, basically. So this is Gettysburg, PA, and we're having our 157th protest, even though people don't know about it or people don't care. So, this is a weekly thing that I do. It's an individual protest, and I wish people would get involved, but they're not. Often here on these talking stations, these talking heads and everything about, when I read about net zero, you hear about that, and also carbon offset. Well, that's done by governments and also individuals, and it's a load of crap. People think that if you take an airplane trip and then you plant 5 trees, that's your carbon offset. No, I'll explain this in basic terms, and this is going to sound a little crass, but the basic terms is, this is an example. If I had a load of cow manure or horse manure or whatever and dumped it in the center square here in Gettysburg, and then I proceeded to plant, it has a lot of smell to it and everything else. So it's a load of crap in the middle of Gettysburg. So if I plant some flowers to offset that smell, does that make the fact that I've dumped a load of crap in the middle of Gettysburg any less of an egregious thing? No, the load of crap is still there. So the same thing is with carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. If I shoot off or go on a trip or fly in an airplane, everything we do as humans creates carbon dioxide, basically. So if I go on a trip, an airplane trip, and think, oh, well, I'll plant 5 trees, well, that carbon dioxide is still in the atmosphere. It doesn't go away for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I can plant all the trees I want. Yeah, eventually they might grow old enough, maybe, to offset our trip or do whatever. But in reality, no. The carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere hundreds, if not thousands of years. So basically, when you're taking your little trip and doing whatever is, for an example, your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will suffer the effects of that trip. Doesn't matter what you do, it's not going away, it's staying in the atmosphere. It might make you feel better. That's called virtue signaling. That's a way to feel better. So what it creates is feedback loops, and with this carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it creates heating. And carbon dioxide is like a giant blanket that insulates the atmosphere from cooling down. You need a certain amount of carbon dioxide to keep the atmosphere warm, where we live, because otherwise the temperatures would be very cold and we'd have ice ages. But this idea that the carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere is horrendous. You get into feedback loops, which, for example, the Arctic, you get Arctic sea ice in the Arctic Ocean melts away. Then you get more loss of albedo, which creates more heating of the sea ice and the oceans now that they're dark. And so you get a situation where it just heats up and heats up. You get glacier loss, permafrost thaw, you get carbon dioxide, more carbon dioxide emitted in the atmosphere due to the permafrost thaw. You get methane in the atmosphere, nitrous oxide. You get all sorts of problems. You get waves in the Arctic Ocean, which breaks up more sea ice, which creates less albedo as well, and more heating of the ice in the region up there. So you constantly get warming rivers dump back into the Arctic Ocean, and then results in more heating. So it's an endless loop that keeps going. Once you feed back and it starts going, it keeps going on its own volition. So right now the United Nations, back on August 9th, I think it was, issued Code Red for Humanity. You know, that means we're in danger of extinction. People aren't getting it, and the politicians don't want to get it. They know the information. Joe Biden and the other leaders of the countries of the world know this is a fact because the United Nations issued the report, and they're usually extremely conservative. They're saying basically we're setting ourselves up for extinction. And there's a total disconnect as to what's going on and what we need to do. Is this sinister? Is this pure greed? Is this stupidity? I don't know, but you're voting for these people constantly makes these people feel entitled to keep going on the path they're on. You need to change your ways and quit worrying about winning so much. If you know, no action's being taken by the world's governments. In fact, you could almost say, and you should say, that the opposite is happening. They're still issuing fracking permits and drilling permits around the world, coal mines, things like that. This needs to stop. Subsidies to the fossil fuel industry needs to stop. Only protests work, you know, and that's been the case throughout history. These people would say, "Oh no, it's too much in your face. It doesn't make people happy." And no, they're not made to make people happy. You're made to make the politicians aware that you're not going to take it anymore, and they're going to have an insurrection on their hands if they keep up. So protests do work. They get things changed. Whether it's, and I had an idea last week. I said this. You could have single-person protests. You could have spread-out protests if you can't find more than one person or 5 people or 20 people. You space yourself out either over time, like up here, climate change protest corner. Whereas, for example, I'll stand out here for a while, and then when I leave, hopefully someone else will take it up and stand there also for a while with a placard and saying about being a climate change emergency. All right, so protests do work. You know, sometimes people around here, at least, do the one and done. They'll go to whatever protest and do it once every 5 years, and that's enough. No, it needs to be constant in order to work, and that's why protests haven't worked in some places, because people think one and done, and then that's it. The politicians hunker down for one protest, and then they're fine. Everything's A-okay, and they go back to the way they're doing things. So you need more than one person, but you know, for now, one person is all you got, and that's you listening to this broadcast. So you can do it too. You can go out and do these protests like I do. This is number 157 for me. You can do broadcasts from those protests. You can do broadcasts on the internet about things. You can learn about climate change. College kids, high school kids, where are you? Why aren't you out protesting? Why aren't you doing things more aggressively concerning climate change? This is your very lives at stake. I don't understand it at all. And then especially retirees. People that have retired from work have nothing to lose. They're not going to take your benefits away. So you should be out there protesting and doing what you need to do to make people aware about climate change and how fearful you are as to consequences of not taking action and actually doing the opposite. So what do you have to lose, you know, by getting out there and doing something? So next week will be number 158. That'll be on December 17th, 2021. I'll see you next week. Bye.